Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Umar Rahman and roll number is 078. Today I am going to present the linguistic first chapter, the origin of language, some of its topic. Number one, the tool making source. Second one, the human brain. The third one is the genetic sources. And the fourth one is the innateness hypothesis. So let's begin with the first topic, the tool making sources. As you can see in this picture, there is a man. Well, this picture is about the early stages when there is no development. People used to do work manually. There is no technology. So this picture is about that time. So in this picture, there is a man who is trying to produce the fire by striking the stones. And this is basically the tool making source. Like this picture is showing the actual meaning of tool making source. So let's just discuss the tool making source in detail. Our first point is that humans started making tools and manipulating objects using both hands. It means that the human used to make things by their hands. Like they make things manually. They do their work manually. That wasn't the technology time. That wasn't the time of the advancement. So people used to make things, people used to create things by their own self, by using both hands. The next point is the manual gestures may have been a precursor of language. The oral gesture theory proves that the manual gestures may have been the precursor of the language. So, what is basically the precursor? An early stage, a precursor is considered the development stage that precedes the fully formed in linguistic element, right? But in evolutionary, when we think it evolutionary, it highlights the historical connection between the early and the later linguistic features as we are studying the linguistic topic. So that's why it relates both the early and the later linguistic features that show that how languages gradually evolved, right? For example, um, in the study of the language acquisition that we have read before, the babbling sound are often considered precursors to spoken word. They are the first attempt at producing the speech like a sound that eventually developed in meaningful word. The baby, newborn baby used to babble, and then they created the language by the babbling of that baby. Like, for example, if I consider a new word after the babbling, I said the blah blah. Blah blah is the babbling now. Then people consider it like as the excess of the information after that blah blah. They make the blah blah as their own word. So that is basically the precursor. Then our third point is bringing words together, like bringing two rocks together to make a new tool. So people used to um, uh, bring two words together to make a new word. Okay? Then, for example, I have show you the picture before in which a man is used to produce the fire by striking the stones. So same like that, people used to make new things by connecting two different things, right? So now we will discuss the human brain, which is a subheading of the tool making source. So our first point is the functions for object manipulation and for speaking are very close to each other in the left hemisphere of the brain. Lateralization. There may have been an evolutionary connection between the use of the tools and the use of the language in the early humans. First of all, we will discuss the lateralization. The term lateralization, what does it mean? So, basically, lateralization refers to the idea that the two halves of the brain have different functions and specialized in the different tasks. Our brain consists of two hemispheres, left hemisphere which control the right part of the body and the right hemisphere which control the left part of the body. So, for example, the left hemisphere is often considered to the dominant for the language, while the right hemisphere is often considered to the better at visual motor tasks. Here are some other things to know about the lateralization. For example, the lateralized brain. What is basically the lateralized brain? Lateralized brain can perform different functions simultaneously on each side of the brain, which can increase the cognitive capacity. And there are different type of the lateralization. For example, there are let's just suppose that there are two type of lateralization: individual and directional. The individual lateralization, roughly halves of the specific is lateralized in one direction and the other half is lateralized in the other direction. In directional lateralization, more individuals in the specific have the same direction of the lateralization. But we are talking about the brain right now. So our brain organization is basically on the lateralization. The division of the labor between the two hemispheres of the brain is thought to allow for the more complex behavior that we actually done in our daily life. Brain structure. When it comes to the brain structure, the human brain is separated into two cerebral hemisphere that I have told you before by the medium longitudinal fissure, and the two hemispheres are connected by the corpus callosum. So now we will discuss the point. In this point, we just discussing the object manipulation and the speaking of the language. How the object manipulation and the speaking of language are connected to each other. Like they are saying in early humans, the both things are connected to each other. The connection between the language and the object manipulation in the tool making is deeply rooted in the cognitive and evolutionary processes. For example, the research indicates that the some region of the brain involved the language processing, such as Broca's area, are also responsible for planning and executing the complex tool used. And this suggests that the language and the tool making share a common neutral substrate. For example, the Broca area, traditionally associated with the speech and the language, now, so also supports the motor control and the sequential action planning required for the making and the using of the tool. So, what is basically the sequential processing? Both language and the tool use involve the sequencing, whether it's arrange word in the grammatical order or following the series of the step and the shape a tool, or the cognitive ability to organize the sequence in the structured manner may have evolved to support both skills. It also covered the gestures and the communication. The evolution of the hand movement used in the tool making may have laid the foundation for the gestural communication, which eventually evolved in spoken language. And this theory is basically known as the gesture first hypothesis, right? And then the cognitive complexibility. Both language and tool use require abstract thinking and the ability of the mental stimulate overcome. When making tool, one must envision the final product and the plan, the necessary step, much like formatting a complex sentence before speaking. So this is how object manipulation and the tool making is interconnected and the speaking is interconnected with each other. Now we will discuss the second point. This theory allow for structural organization inherent to all language, even the sign language, not only the articulation of sound to denote objects. So in this point, we are discussing the articulation of the sounds, right? What is basically the articulation of sound? Articulation of the sound is basically the physical process by which the human produce the speech by manipulating the airflow and the shaping it with different part of the vocal cord, right? Vocal tract over basically. This process is critical for language and really relies on the precise coordination of the several autonomical structure, right? So basically when we speak, fine, we make the different shape of our mouth, we just contract and relax our tracks, so we just for produce the sound now basically. So this process is basically known as the articulation of the sound. And we have discussed in this point that the articulation of sound to denote objects, and denote object in this sentence mean the grammatical we can say that the grammatical communication that we do is to denote the object, to denote the language that is basically produced by the early humans. So we discussed this thing in our point. So let's just discuss the genetic source in detail, which is the next heading. So what is basically the genetic source? Genetic source is related with our DNA, with the human genes, which is inherited by their parents, and everyone is having that. Like every human, every a person in this world is having the genetic material. So our first point is that the young babies go through developments. So let's discuss the young babies that go through the different developments. The young babies are basically of age of the 12 months, and they're having the small brain, right? And the larynx higher in throat, the changes take places almost automatic set of development. What does it mean? Small brain, everyone knows that the babies are having the small brain, but the active brain, right? So larynx is basically present in our throat, right? And the higher note of the voice is produced by the small babies. Then different changes take place. Like a baby used to babble when baby do. Okay, let's just discuss one thing here, that the language that we speak is already stored in our brain. When a newborn baby is just born, then the language is stored in his her brain automatically by the nature. So then it just come out by the environment in which the baby is growing up, right? So almost automatic set of development is the genetic source. Fine. Like in the environment, a baby is growing up, the things that is present in the environment, he or she will automatically acquire that thing, and then the overcome will be the same person that is living in the same environment, right? Our next point is, even children who are born deaf become the fluent speakers of the sign language. Yeah, it simply means that the babies who are born deaf can't hear, and they speak the fluent language, which is the sign language, because they can't speak now, because they didn't hear the single word. So how can they speak? So they speak the sign language by using their hands, by using different gestures, by using different you can say that actions. So a newborn baby can adopt the sign language, can learn the sign language, and they can speak it fluently, not speak, but they can express it just fluently, and claim that human offspring are born with the special capacity of the language. Anatomist theory proved that. First, we will discuss that what is innateness theory. So basically, innateness theory is also known as the nativism, is a concept in the cognitive science, linguistic, and philosophy, which processes that the certain knowledge, abilities, or ideas are inborn and hardwired into the brain rather than acquired the solely thought experiences. And this theory is particularly influential in explaining the language acquisition and cognitive development. Then, coming back to the point, claim that human offspring are born with a special capacity of the brain. Obviously, when the baby is born, it it is the baby is having basically his own genes, which is inherited by his her parents, right? So the capacity of the language is already stored in his her brain, right? So this is the innateness theory. And then our next point is the capacity for the language genetically hardwired into newborn baby. जब भी कोई बच्चा पैदा होता है उसके दिमाग में पहले से ही लैंग्वेज स्टोर होती है, फिर जिस एनवायरनमेंट के अंदर वो पलता बढ़ता है, जिस एनवायरनमेंट के अंदर वो ग्रो करता है, उसके अकॉर्डिंग फिर वो उस लैंग्वेज को का आउटकम देता है, वो उस लैंग्वेज को बोलना सीखता है. बैबलिंग ऑफ द साउंड हमने पीछे पढ़ा था टूल मेकिंग सोर्स की जो ब्रेन वाला जो हमने पढ़ा था कि द बैबलिंग ऑफ द साउंड इज sorry, is the source of producing the language. So the capacity of the language genetically hardwired into the, क्योंकि हमारे पेरेंट्स जब हमारे पेरेंट्स लैंग्वेज को बोलते हैं, they know that what the language is after the born of the baby, after the birth of the baby. So baby already having the language stored in his her brain. ठीक है? Our next point is that this implies all the language in general, not one specific language. इसका ये मतलब है कि जब भी कोई बच्चा पैदा होता है उसके दिमाग में जितनी भी लैंग्वेजेस इन दिस वर्ल्ड इज प्रेजेंट ना, वो सारी उस बच्चे के दिमाग के अंदर ऑलरेडी स्टोर्ड होती हैं. देन इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द इन्वायरमेंट कि वो जिस इन्वायरमेंट के अंदर वो ग्रो करता है, वो ग्रूम करता है, अकॉर्डिंग टू दैट वो लैंग्वेज अडॉप्ट करता है, वही लैंग्वेज वो आउटकम देता है, वही लैंग्वेज स्पीकर वो होता है. डन. Our next point is the crucial mutation in human genetics, special language gene that only human possess. So what is basically the crucial mutation? So the crucial mutation in human genetics is basically the genetic change that has the significant impact on an organism development, survival, or evolution. This mutation can be beneficial, harmful, or neutral, depending on their effect on the organism fitness and the environment in which they occur basically. So the special language gene is that only human possess, means that the human is having this crucial mutation, right? Only the humans is having the crucial mutation, because animals, they just they don't I think, like animals, you know ना, that animals are different from the human, because वो जानवर जो हुए so सिर्फ humans के अंदर ये ability होती है. This would mean that the language, I'm on the next point. This would mean that the language did not result from the gradual change. but happened rather quickly as a crucial genetic mutation unlike the physical adoption. इसका ये मतलब है कि जो लैंग्वेज है, the language did not result from the gradual change but happened rather quickly as the crucial genetic mutation. आपको पता है ना कि crucial genetic mutation क्या होती है? ये इंसान को जो है वो हेल्प करती है उसके जेनेटिक चेंज के अंदर, जो कि इंसान का जो डेवलपमेंट होता है, जो उसकी सर्वाइवल होती है, जो एवोल्यूशन होती है, उसके उसको अडॉप्ट करने में वो हेल्प करती है। तो ये चीज़ सिर्फ इंसानों के अंदर प्रेजेंट होती है। जानवर जहाँ पर पैदा होता है वो वहीं पर चलना शुरू हो जाता है, वो उसी अपने इन्वायरमेंट को अडॉप्ट करता है, उसके अंदर सेंस नहीं होती। यही डिफरेंस है, दैट ह्यूमंस आर हैविंग सेंस एंड एनिमल्स आर नॉट हैविंग सेंस। अब सेंस यानी इंसान और जानवर में फ़र्क होता है, विच इज़ तमीज़, तहज़ीब। सो यही चीज़ वो बता रहे हैं कि सिर्फ़ इंसानों के अंदर ये चीज़ मौजूद है, ये जो है वो कह सकते हैं एबिलिटी मौजूद है। जानवरों में या किसी और शय में ये चीज़ मौजूद नहीं है। Not certainly when this genetic change might have taken place and how it may relate to physical adoption. So basically how it is related with the physical adoption. So the crucial mutation are closely related to the physical adoption because because these mutations can drive the development of new uh, traits that help organisms survive and thrive in the environment. When the mutation proves beneficial, it can lead to the adoption which enhance an organism physical characteristics contribute to the evolutionary success. Here is the question come that if we have a specific gene of language, can other features also learn that language? Like there's a question now. Here is the picture of the DNA, the genetic material that every human is having in this earth, right? So, as you can see in this picture, I have just shared because of the extra information that your points should be clear, and then you must know that how it look like, right? So here I just shared the overcome of the chapter, the whole theories of the chapter, the origin of language. So basically, I have just making a table of which consists of theories, arguments for, arguments against, and the development that is bring by the all these theories and all the the arguments and the arguments against. So in theories, the first theory is the divine source, which is the monogenetic, एंड इसके लिए कोई आर्गुमेंट नहीं था, इसके लिए कोई अगेंस्ट नहीं था, तो ये बहुत ही सडनली हुई थी, बहुत ही सडन ये डेवलपमेंट थी. देन अवर नेक्स्ट थ्योरी वाज द नेचुरल साउंड सोर्स, जो बोबो थी और फोफो थी. एंड ये जो आर्गुमेंट था, ये एग्जिस्टेंस फॉर द ओनोमोटोपिया था, ठीक है. एंड देन आर्ग्यूमेंट अगेंस्ट जो था, साउंडलेस थिंग्स एंड एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कंसेप्ट प्रोड्यूस्ड विद द इनटेक ऑफ ब्रीथ. ये आर्ग्यूमेंट अगेंस्ट किया गया था इसके बोपो के और पोपो के जो जो हमारे पास थेरी थी. और ये जो है ये ग्रेजुअली आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ये डेवलपमेंट हुई थी, क्योंकि ये सडन नहीं थी, क्योंकि इसके ऊपर बहुत ही एलिगेशंस थी पहले, फिर उसके बाद इन्होंने क्लियर आउट किया एंड देन ग्रेजुअली आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जो है वो डेवलपमेंट आई. उसके बाद हमारी नेक्स्ट जो थ्योरी थी वो थी द सोशल इंट्रैक्शन सोर्स, जिसके अंदर हम लोगों ने वो पढ़ी थी यो की थ्योरी. और उसके लिए आर्गुमेंट किया गया था कि अर्ली ह्यूमंस लिव इन द ग्रुप्स, और वो उस थ्योरी के अकॉर्डिंग ये आर्गुमेंट किया गया था कि जो हमारे पहले जो इंसान थे वो ग्रुप्स में रहा करते थे. फिर आर्गुमेंट अगेंस्ट हुआ और ये कहा गया कि अदर प्राइमेट्स ऑल्सो लिव इन द ग्रुप्स एंड यूज ग्रांट्स, राइट। तो ये जो डेवलपमेंट थी ये भी आहिस्ता आहिस्ता हुई थी, क्योंकि ये सडन नहीं थी, इसके ऊपर भी एलिगेशंस थी। और फिर करते करते ये आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जो है फिर ये थ्योरी जो है डेवलप हुई। उसके बाद हमारे पास जो नेक्स्ट हमारी फोर्थ थ्योरी थी द फिजिकल अडॉप्शन सोर्स, जिसके अंदर मैंने आपको बताया था टीथ, लिप्स, माउथ, लेरिंग्स, फेरिंग्स, ये सब कुछ इसके अंडर आ जाता है। और ये आर्ग्यूमेंट हुआ था देयर इज एविडेंस फॉर द एवोल्यूशनरी चेंज, प्रूव किया गया था एविडेंस के साथ। देन आर्ग्यूमेंट अगेंस्ट किया गया था इसके, और वो कहा था कि दीज चेंजेस वुड नॉट देमसेल्फ लीड टू द स्पीच प्रोडक्शन। ये भी फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जो है वो डेवलपमेंट की गई थी। फिर हमारे नेक्स्ट जो थ्योरी थी वो टूल मेकिंग सोर्स थी। फिर उसमें ब्रेन वाला जो मैंने आपको, वो सारा मैंने आपको जो बताया है अभी इस वाली जो मेरी प्रेजेंटेशन हुई है इसके अंदर। और फिर इसके ऊपर आर्ग्यूमेंट किया गया था कि अकाउंट्स फॉर स्ट्रक्चरल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ द लैंग्वेज, और इसके फिर यही एक आर्ग्यूमेंट किया गया था, इसके अगेंस्ट कोई आर्ग्यूमेंट नहीं किया गया था। और ये भी आहिस्ता आहिस्ता आके जो है डेवलपमेंट हुई थी, ठीक है। और फिर हमारे पास जो लास्ट जो जेनेटिक सोर्स थी ये नेटनस थ्योरी वाली, वो जो मैंने आपको बताई है, और वो जो है वो सारा बहुत ही सडनली हो गया था, क्योंकि इसके ऊपर कोई आर्गुमेंट अगेंस्ट नहीं था। और ऑटोमेटिक सेट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इन द यंग्स चिल्ड्रन, ये सारा मैंने डिस्कस किया था इस स्लाइड के अंदर। तो ये थी मेरी पीपीटी।